You're listening to the practice of a Hoodoo Baptist. This is my personal journey of root work, faith, and ancestral wisdom. This is where I honor the ones that came before me and share what's been passed down and walk you through my experiences of being unapologetically aligned, covered by spirit, guided by blood. Today, we have a very special guest, Kat Niambi, aka the Hungry Medium. She's a spiritual activist and founder behind Middleton-Cooke Farms, a 501c3 charitable sanctuary rooted in ancestral reverence, land stewardship, and collective healing for Black and Indigenous women and femmes. Through sacred wellness programs and ancestral veneration, she creates healing experiences within various communities that reflect her commitment to honor her lineage and her parents' memory. Kat Niambi. Miss Kat, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
You look fabulous.
Thank you.
All the
That means a
colors.
lot coming from you.
You look fabulous. You look good. I love all the colors. I love the accessories. I
Thank
always
you.
tell you, I always love your glasses too.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for coming on here today. I know you are a very busy lady.
Not so much right now, so that's good. You caught me at a good time.
Okay, yeah, so it's all aligned. It's meant to be.
Yeah.
Really quick. Let me tap back into your memory really quick. So one of my very first reading with you at Buku Hoodoo Fest, maybe the first or second year. I don't remember, but my first reading though, right off the back, you were like, "You come from a lineage of hoodoo practitioners,"
Did
and I
I?
say, "Yeah, you did. Yeah, yeah." That's why I was like, I'm gonna tap into your memory just in case, because I remember it quite well. Because I was like, oh yeah, I love her. She's amazing. She's great. She's good. Oh, she's good.
No,
No,
I don't
see,
remember. I don't remember anything. I have CRS. Can't remember shit.
I'm screaming. Yeah, no. So yeah, you're like you come from a long lineage of hoodoo practitioners, and you know you were like, and you know that, and I was like, yes, yes, I know. I'm tapped in. I'm more loud with it because in my family, a little bit of background, my family history on my mother's side, those are maternal side, majority hoodoo practitioners. However, they practice in silence. And so from folks like me and my mother's sister, we're a little bit more open and loud with it, but not necessarily in a way of like advertising it. And
Yeah.
because my aunt is it's a real personal thing with her because she has the gift of sight. So that was really cool validation for me because we've always had to express ourselves in private, or it's just always been a thing where certain family members or folks outside the family members just know, but a lot of them are
Yes.
elders or they passed on. So
Yes.
that was really cool. And the last thing we talked about, we did a full reading, but one of the last things we talked about was you told me how there's folks in my family who have passed on, but as far as their resting spot, it's not necessarily leveled, or they're not 100% resting because of where they are. Something's going on with the land or wherever they are. I'm tripping you out, but this is what you told me. And so and so I was like, huh? And I was like the cemetery, and you were like, yeah, it's something that's not quite right. You need to look into that. So I told my mother, and we looked into it, and my mother was like, wow, what's really interesting is that there's somebody that doesn't have a headstone, so maybe we need to look into who doesn't have a headstone. So we called. She figured out that it was her uncle, who's my grandmother's older brother, but he passed about 20 years ago, and we were under the impression that another family member was going to look into the headstone situation. So when we looked into it, we realized he does not have a headstone. And then further, more investigation, we noticed that there was another family member that was buried in the same cemetery close to him, and where he is, there's like a it's like a little swamp,
Mm,
like a creek situation, and it had gone through some flooding.
mm.
And my mother was like, "Oh no, we got to fix this." So we've pretty much created a fund together to start paying for headstones for family members that don't have one, because we truly believe that in order for us to move on, break generational, intergenerational curses, not just mentally, but physically, and to help folks, our loved ones, rest, we have to make sure that they are resting and they have their headstones, they have their
Absolutely.
names, and
Absolutely.
they're able to, to really have a
Yes.
fully peaceful transition. And we help them, they help us, right?
Yes, that's right. All of
So I
not
thank you.
all of them, but we can talk a little bit about that, especially us
Yeah,
as indigenous people, from indigenous faraway lands and the existing land we live on.
yeah.
It's not a it's so interesting how we want to pick and choose who we honor,
Mm,
especially those of us that have white lineage, and they want to walk in the world and not honor those people.
mm-hmm.
And I think it's so interesting because there are a lot of, I'll just say black people, for, just to generalize us in one cultural aspect,
Mm-hmm.
who are like, I'm not for that person. That person was a slave master and he was, and I said, but yet you got Uncle Johnny on your wall that was doing dirty. What do you know about all of them? You don't know about all of them. So I think that we really need to reconcile that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of clients who don't want to do that work when that is the work that they need to be doing.
Mm, mm.
Giving some whiskey or bourbon or something.
Can we talk about that? What do you do as far as for your services with your clients? Like, what do you do? Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, it's changed. It's evolved. It's
Mm,
funny you were asking that. When you asked me if I wanted the questions ahead of time, I was like, nope. Because I have to honor the fact that I am speaking my truth in real time and not coming up with the answers ahead of time. But I always sort of do this pre enactment,
mm,
in my head, like, oh, I wonder what we're going to talk about. Well, if we talk about this, I could certainly talk about that. So when I thought about the idea of you asking me about my services and offerings and things of that nature, it has evolved, and it has evolved based on what I'm going through. I think healers need to honor their true path and course, and things are constantly changing for all of us, especially in regards to what the collective needs from
mm-hmm.
us. Of late, the collective needs help with knowing their purpose. So I did a lot of one-on-one, and tapping in and channeling and mediumship when I was giving you the reading, using cards and doing the
Mm-hmm.
one-on-one, for X amount of dollars. I will tell you this and da da da. And since coming up with the work of the farm, and I'm using this because a lot of people don't understand what the farm really is, and I'm sure we'll get into that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's taken a lot out of me energetically.
Mm,
And so I've had to alter, and then there's definitely some life changing things spiritually, spiritual communities that I have recently made an exodus from, that I had to work through that as well. So,
mm.
there's the personal life, but you still are here to help. So, a lot of my work
Right.
has been with the community that I'm glad you are a part of. And so I still had to do something because I was told many, many years ago that this is the work that I have to do. I was told by elders who were channeling spirit on multiple occasions, you have to be doing this work. So, to honor that, Um, I have, this offering where I'm offering, like a 20-minute recording, which is amazing. And it's called Illuminating Your Purpose. Because I realized that a lot of people need something. In our tradition, we have lots of things we can rely on, but there's a million billion people in the world who don't have a spiritual tradition, a spiritual house. And if they only knew what their purpose was, and how that ties into your wound, that how it ties into, I guess we'll call it North Star, for lack of a better word, how it looks to use your Venus energy to attain and follow the path of purpose. So I've just been tapping into, I've been joking a lot about, I'm not an astrologer. I do. You've heard me say that. I'm not an astrologer, but so, if spirit, if God, if my path is putting different tools in my place based on my astrological placements, then I did a year of complete flow where I just let the things that needed to come to me, and then follow those directions. You got a cookbook. You have to do this first. You have to sift the flour. You have to get your dry ingredients. So if you know your purpose, and I found out what my purpose was, and I'm like, this resonates with me. Is this, can I curse on here? I have
Yes.
to. Okay.
Be yourself.
Thank you. This shit resonated with me. Knowing that I have been doing this work as a child, as a teen, as an adolescent, as a teen, as a young adult, and you don't realize, and then you have the people around you saying, who do you think you, but all of that stuff comes to you naturally, and to be told to not pay attention to it, that it's not within the constructs of their mindset, when you're supposed to be obedient and listen to spirit, and spirit and all messengers from God in all forms. Making sure I'm clear on that. Messengers of God in all forms. Once you start doing the work, whether that work is therapy, whether that work is spiritual, attending to your altars, your guides and protectors, your Ori, your ancestors, once you start listening to them, listening to your inner child and what they want, that is the work. When people say, what's the work? The work is listening and being obedient. So when you ask about the services, right now, I am giving back to the people who have fed into me, people in the community, talking to them on the phone. If they need to talk to me for an hour, I'm not going to sit there and say, well, that'll be, and you must sign up for my blah, blah. No. If you need an hour with me on the phone, I'm going to talk. Chelsea, if you need an hour with me on the phone, you can call me anytime. And then the offering for the rest of the world is through the Illuminating Your Purpose, which is on thehungrymedium.com. www.
Tap in.
Tap in. And that's that. And then I'm doing, things like I've finished writing a book.
Ooh, yes.
I'm just living my life right now. My purpose. And
I'm
in
here
living
for
my
it.
purpose, I'm helping others. My purpose is to help others with their purpose.
Yes.
And in doing that, I get to do fun things. I get to let my inner child play, because she didn't get to play. She didn't know she was allowed to play. And that's what I'm doing right now.
I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Especially now that you said you're getting to play. Because you did mention the book, and I was like, ooh, that's exciting.
Yes, it is. It's finished. And one of the hardest lessons of the work for me, and the wound that I have, is to allow other people to help me.
Mm-hmm.
It is to ask other people to help me. So that is what I'll be working on next. Getting someone to help me get it out to the world. Because one thing we like to do as humans, you'll hear me talk about humans a lot. Humans tend to do self-sabotaging things or are reluctant to do certain things because of fear of rejection, fear of not being liked or loved. And I've worked through a year, actually longer than that. I'm 58, so I've worked through 58 years practically of living a life of doing things in order to be loved. And if that becomes a habit and becomes part of your construct, the work involves coming out of that hole.
Yeah. In doing the work, you mentioned listening. Can you share like your earliest experience with spirit as far as listening to spirit? Can you share that?
Those are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just see if I can compartmentalize. I've always heard spirit, and I've never been able to identify what it was until I entered an African traditional religion that helped to develop me spiritually. And that wasn't until I was in my 40s, girl. We talking about 40 years old. Before that, I really had church. I think it's important for your listeners to know that I grew up in the church. I was raised in the church, not as a PK or anything like that, but damn near. My mother was a serious member. So I came to her later in life. She had all these other kids that weren't going to church, but she had me in tow at least twice a week. She was going the other days. I had to go to rehearsal for either junior usher board
Okay.
or the gospel angels, gospel choir. Honey, I was in
Yes.
gospel angels. So in church, my first experience with spirit had to be how much joy I took in watching people get filled with the Holy Ghost. It was one of my favorite things, unless it was my mother.
Same.
Then it was
Same.
embarrassing, but I loved it. All the kids would be laughing. You probably heard me say this story a million times. All the kids would be laughing at the people, and I'd be like, and then I became, because of my Scorpio placements, I became the she ain't really feeling no Holy Ghost. She's faking it.
Oh my
That
God.
was that was my entertainment while whatever else was going on. I don't know what else was going on. It
Yeah.
Listening to the pastor was the worst experience I ever had in church. The singing and people being filled with the Holy Ghost was my favorite. So that was my first experience. You know, this topic, this title is about
Mm-hmm.
haints and like ghost stories. And I would have to say that my first experience with spirit was being born.
Mm.
Being born into a home that was traumatized by an experience, an episode, and a horrible tragedy that happened 11 years before I was born. We could talk about that, but I would say the outcome of that, my first experience with that, is that I truly believe I was reincarnated as my sister who died.
Mm.
And trigger warning, my sister, who I did not know, died when she was 2.5 years old, tragically, in the same home that I was born into. So, due to lots of things, we probably have to have a whole podcast interview about it, but I'm actually writing a book about that now.
Amazing.
I truly believe I was given the opportunity to be born as her, reincarnated. So that's really my birth being the first. And then we had incidents of exorcism in the South, where I currently live, Charleston, South Carolina, because I was born a Gemini. And I was born a Gemini in Scorpio's house. So
Oh,
I'm telling people about themselves. I'm pretty
yeah.
sure. You know how
Yeah.
you talk about tapping into memory and I was telling you I can't remember shit and all this stuff? It's on purpose. It's on purpose that I don't really have a really solid memory of my childhood. I can give you little things here and there, um, but the experience of understanding and knowing now, in retrospect, that I was telling grown-ups about themselves. I was telling grown-ups about things that were happening before I was born, and there's no way I would have known that.
Hmm.
So I know that my mother sent me down south, which I came down south here every year as a kid. Um, but they call it tarrying. Have you heard of this?
No.
But you do know that Pentecostal churches were came out of hoodoo tradition.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm aware of that.
right. So there's this thing. So a lot of people who learned from Mason, I believe
Mm-hmm.
that was his name, were doing a lot of hoodoo practices in the church.
Yes.
And one of those practices was tarrying. And through my research and through my conversations with my only living aunt on my maternal side now, who still lives here, Charleston, um, I had a memory of being brought into a church when I was 8. And I was coming down south every year, but this year was a little different, you know? And I always went to church with them, Pentecostal. And I definitely know that that church was developed out of, the movement, Mason's movement. And when I was interviewing my aunt and asking her, what happened that day? What happened that day? Because I remember it like a dream, and no one ever talked about it again. And I wondered, like, why isn't this like a conversation? I feel like, and I'll tell you what happened. I'll tell you what I remember, and then I'll tell you what my aunt told me. And then I spoke to the son of the pastor of the church, all family, my uncle, my aunt's
Got
husband,
it.
their
Mm-hmm.
family out there in Mount Pleasant, honey. Whew, these people are so spiritual, and they decide to take that and put it into something safe. We are always seeking things that are safe, and Christianity is safe.
Mm-hmm.
Christianity was safe for us. If you want to understand why we take that route, it's because it's safe.
Mm.
You talk about your family doing it. You use the word quietly, but the word I heard was in hiding.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And
Absolutely.
the same for the Yoruba Lukumi tradition that had to bring that religion to all the parts, not just Lukumi, but Candomblé and voodoo in New Orleans, Cuba, Lukumi. And if you think about hoodoo, it's because we didn't have as Christians when those English people, the English didn't have saints for us to hide stuff in.
Right. Right.
So we really was doing secret shit.
Yeah.
So now I'm telling you a story of how they did it in the church.
Mm-hmm.
And when you try to look this up on YouTube, you ain't gonna find nothing. Cause I'm gonna tell you what happened to me. Now I haven't gone any further than my experience because I was like, listen, I got enough to deal with. I know what happened and I know why they did it. So I guess I was talking too much, which was normal for me. And I came down south for the first time by myself, which was weird because normally it'd be me and my mom on that Greyhound bus. But when I was 8, they were prepping me for the plane. I was gonna get on the plane, honey, and all by myself. I'd never been on a plane, and the first time
Mm-hmm.
I ever got on a plane, I was by myself, 8 years old.
Wow.
which is weird, right? You think about it, weird. So they're telling me how to sit because they had a dress on me. I'm like, why are you telling me how to sit? I know how to wear a dress. Anyway, they put me on the plane. I come down here. I go over to my aunt like I always do. And I went to church. And one time we went what seemed to be at night. And I'm going to tell you what I remember. I remember being taken down to a basement with other kids. Now, this is just my memory. I really asked my aunt what happened, and she's like, no, that didn't happen. This is what happened. But I'm going to tell you my memory, because I really feel like my memory is rooted in my sister Catherine, K-A-T, like Kat, like Kateria. These people named me after this child that fell out a window 11 years before I was born. And no one thought that was weird. Anyway, going to church. This is what I feel. We're going to church. Okay. Sometimes we go to revivals on the week. Okay, we're going to church. I remember being taken to a basement. I asked my aunt, basement? No, there's no basement in that church. Okay. They lined up some chairs, folding chairs, and they put newspaper on all the chairs. And then, this is me. Once again, pleaser. And I was joking with my youngest daughter, who's an Aquarian, and we were joking because I was like, you would have never listened to what these people are telling you to do. But me, I'm going to do. I follow the rules. I'm going to do whatever y'all are telling me to do, just so y'all could love me and not be mad at me. Now they want us to get on our knees in front of the chairs. And then they start playing tambourines. I remember drums, but there were no drums. Tambourines and clapping. And they had us doing this. And I'm looking at the other kids. What is it they want us to do? They want us to purge. That's why they put the newspapers there. And they start chanting. You want to know what they start chanting?
What?
Jesus. And they are going, Jesus, 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 Jesus. I've had an imaginary friend my whole life up until this point. Her name was Dada. And I'm just doing what they're saying. Everybody's writhing. Jesus, 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 Jesus. And they clap. And I'm like, okay, they want me to do this, but why is this newspaper here? What do they want me to do with the newspaper? And there's nothing I could do with the newspaper. I didn't know what to do. I know they wanted me to purge. And all I can tell you is to have an imaginary friend up until the age of 8 is unusual. Usually they go away when you start school. But I had her. Her name was Dada. As it turns out, Dada has a lot of meanings. Dada means sister in Swahili. Dada is Shango's sister, from what I understand. Dada is when there are babies born with tight, curly, nappy hair. They call them Dadas. Dada is an Orisha. So, and my family knew Dada. So I might have been telling them things like, Dada said. And I remember my mother saying to me, tell Dada I said. I used to be like, well, Dada said. And I'm sure Dada, but let me just tell you, Dada didn't come home back with me. I don't remember Dada after that.
Wow. But did you see or hear Dada while you were there?
I don't remember. She's probably the one. I've had like a child. Here's the 8 years old. When I say my whole life, I should say I was a pleaser for 50 years. And it's so funny, I just turned 58 and that moment happened when I was 8. And here I am living in Charleston, South Carolina. This is the moment where I'm having one of those realizations right here on your podcast interview, live and in charge, you know. But Dada might have been inner child. Dada might have been Catherine. Dada might have been all the things that I was and was meant to be, but it was removed. She was removed. She was blocked because of this act called tarrying. And I am saying that the adults are always doing the best that they know. They were not trying to harm me. They were guarding secrets. And now that I moved here to Charleston 3 years ago, the secrets are revealing themselves about my mother, about the land, about who I am, about who people really are in my life.
Yeah.
Hidden truth. The
Yeah.
eighth house. The eighth house. Scorpio's house.
Mm.
So yeah, moving here to Charleston because they were calling me was so that I could uncover hidden truths. And so when you ask about the obedience was, yes, you need to finally find a place and people and a community that can help guide you to your spiritual development. Yes, you do need to move. You do need to be initiated in this tradition.
Yeah.
Yes, you do need to move to Charleston, South Carolina for your next initiation. Because initiation is more than just becoming part of a community and going through the rituals of that. Initiation is the work you do on yourself to elevate your guides and protectors that live throughout you, whether you want to call it your chakras, and the information you get from your body is information you're getting from your spirit guides. Your spirit guides are throughout your whole being, and that includes your body and the energy sources in your body that speak to you. You know how people say, oh, well, you need to listen to your intuition. And people go, well, what's that? That's the parts of your body that are signaling you that something is wrong, or something is right, or something is good, or something is bad. Those are your spirit guides. That's how your spirit guides work. They're not these necessarily spirits that are surrounding you like the devil and the angel on your shoulder. They are already in you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you had this personal experience with your imaginary friend who could have been, and very much like, I love that you said Dada could have also been your inner child.
Yes.
And I think that's super important, because I think a lot of folks don't consider or talk about their inner child, even when they are, from their remembrance, if they are 10 years old, 5 years old, just that voice that you have, right? And also considering that Dada could have also been a spirit, the spirit of your sister, the spirit of a child, someone in your lineage. I was gonna say, how do you, because of that experience, have you defined spirits, ghosts, or even haints as like, do you compartmentalize them into like, this is this is negative, this is positive? How do you differentiate the two, because you had your personal experience? So I'll share, like, for me, for example, my one of my aunts, her father passed away. I was really cool with her father when I was little. I was 4 or 5 years old. I remember him like clearly. It was like an extra grandpa, and he passed away. And by this time, he may have been either the first or second funeral I attended as a kid, because my grandparents, very adamant about me going to funerals, and they would go to wakes, they would go to funerals,
Like it's a party.
Yes, like it's a right, and that's maybe why I view it. It's normalized, and I actually thank them for that, because to me it's normal.
Yes.
But yeah, I remember attending, viewing his body at the wake and going to the funeral, and I vividly also remember after that seeing him in my grandmother's house, looking at my aunt, and also remember like seeing him in the hallway and saying, "Oh, okay," and then laying back down and going to sleep like it's nothing, like it was nothing.
Like it's nothing.
And yeah, because he had on the same suit they buried him in. He looked like himself. It wasn't dark. It wasn't eerie. It didn't feel unsafe. He looked peaceful. He was just looking at my aunt and being in the house. And I remember the next morning, my mother and my aunt were talking about it because they different fathers, but he was like one of my grandmother's boyfriend at the time. Like he always been there. So they're just grieving, but they were talking about seeing him in the hallway, and I was like, oh, y'all saw Charlie too, and they were like,
Little you.
yeah, little me, and from that, I also remember my mother saying, like, okay, it's okay to talk to us about it, but don't
Yeah.
tell anybody outside that you saw Uncle Charlie in the house,
Yes.
you know? And so that I was just like, okay. But, they had a whole talk with me. Like, they questioned me, like, what did he look like? And I confirmed everything. I confirmed he had on the dark brown suit, and
Yep.
he had his hair was cut, and he had his little cap on. We buried him in like one of his favorite like a Kango hat. But yeah, I was just confirmed everything, and they were tripping out, and they in the conversation they were obviously trying to discuss, like, is she gifted? Can Was it just something that we all could see him? Does he have something to say? Is there something in the house? Like, these are just the kind of what I remember, but it was just so clear and so vivid. And from that experience moving forward, for me, I just never looked at everything like it was negative or all
Right.
these things are demonic.
Yes.
And
Yes.
even
Yes.
the
Yes.
word haint, I never really heard that word growing up, haint.
Yeah.
And it was just, and we also didn't say ghost. We just called the person by their name.
Right.
And that was just that was just
Love
it.
it.
So I'm always so curious for, especially
Mhm.
now, having these, being in the time that we in and having these spaces that we're creating, you and I, and these
Yes.
communities that we can have these conversations.
Yes.
So I'm always so curious to how other people either define ghosts, saints, spirits, haints, or whatever, and how that came to be for them, and what experience kind of shaped that for them. Because for me as a kid, that
Yeah.
was it, and it was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. It wasn't like that for me. And that's part of the whole thing about Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, because I grew up in the church, and you'll see it all. My mother was a Jim Crow refugee. She fled Charleston in the 40s, mid 40s, 1940s. I had an aunt. She passed away right before I moved here, who was considered the family witch. And now that and the thing is, she and I would always tussle. She and I would always tussle when I was a kid. She'd be like, and you look like blah, blah. And she and my mother were like this. They both were Jim Crow refugees, went to Harlem, from Charleston, and were thick as thieves. But they were very different people. Very, very different people. My mother was quiet and fun loving and demure. My aunt was the family witch who didn't take shit from nobody, and she had a reputation for, doing root work.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw how people treated her,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted nothing to do with that.
Mm.
I, again, wanted to be loved. I don't want you talking about me in this way. She and I would have moments where we would be like, passed away, and our cat ran away. And I remember my aunt being like, staying with us for a little while, and our cat ran away. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night, and I was like, I saw Frisky. Frisky was in here. Or then I was like, I saw a white cat. And she was like, Teria, did you really see a white cat? Like, she would always, now in retrospect, I know that she and my brother, who's also passed, I know that they would always ask me questions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like your mother and your aunt were doing.
Mm-hmm.
And now I realize they were asking me questions to get information, but I was just like answering them. I never had the nurturing of this gift. So I decided to take the route of the good girl, not make any waves. It wasn't until I guess I was in my mid-20s that even before I was in this tradition, you see how long it took me to get to this tradition?
Mm-hmm.
From age 8, we're going to start there, to 40. That's why I like working with young people like yourself who are on this path much, 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 much sooner than I was. Because it's so important that we get ourselves together.
Yeah.
But I didn't have nurturing of anything. This, you don't talk about spirit. Even here in the capital, one of the capitals of Hoodoo, Charleston, South Carolina, the Gullah Geechees, who
Mm-hmm.
they, even though it was embedded in the foundation of the Pentecostal church, even, and the thing about it is, you know this, Black folks here will talk about God and Jesus and the church, but as soon as they need a healing,
Yep.
I'm telling my uncle, 80-something-year-old uncle, he got sent the ashes of my said aunt, this his sister,
Mm.
and he was told to hold these ashes until her daughter could come get them or whatever. And then when I said, you had her ashes in your house? I said, you need to do a house cleaning. And he was like, what is that? I said, you don't know? He's like, no, I don't. But then I did believe him. And then it made me sad that he didn't even know he could take a cigar
Yeah.
and clean his house. But
Yeah.
he knows to drink that life everlasting tea when he not feeling well. So sometimes the hoodoo is in the little normalized things, like for them normalized. Let's get this weed off the street. Oh, look, there's some life everlasting. Let's grab that. Let's make a tea with some, I don't know what alcohol they put in it, but let's put that together and drink that. So it's present for us. But when
Yeah.
it comes to the spirits and, you know, in Charleston, they have the ceilings of porches painted what they call now Haint blue.
Haint blue. Yeah.
And people did it to keep the spirits away. They know about that. They release doves at the end of funerals when you come outside.
Yes.
They stand outside in a line in eldership order. The family and everyone else goes in the church, but the family stands outside. You see that in African traditional religions.
Yeah.
So they have the things. They don't know they have the things. Or they don't want to know they have. So it wasn't like it was demonized, but it was just like, we don't talk about that.
Yeah. And I think the not talking about it is part of a it's like an aspect or an effect of what Dr. Joy DeGruy called post-traumatic slave syndrome,
Yes.
because just like it was illegal and criminalized for Black folks to read and write, it was also illegal and criminalized for Black folks to congregate and
Yes.
to worship
Yes.
and to practice any of their own traditions.
Yes.
And I think these things are still, rooted and intertwined
Yeah.
within us, within all the different, I guess, like denominations of Christianity now, to where folks are not necessarily identifying, yeah, because even on social, I see people talking about like, oh, the Southern tradition of Black folks on New Year's Eve and the Southern cooking tradition of Black folks on New Year's Day, and not necessarily knowing where that comes from and why they do it, and even also then talking about like their family traditions, what their mamas and grandmamas doing, and how they love to do it. I'm like, y'all know, y'all, that's ancestor veneration, right?
Right.
But again, because of that removal from our identity,
Yes.
our traditions, and also just not being educated, because it's been so hush hush for
Mm-hmm.
generations on generations. Some elders not telling you why you do this and why you do that and why it's so important. So yeah, it's a lot of these things are just, they're lost, but at the same time I think we're coming back to it
We
too.
are.
Yeah.
Through conversations like this.
Yeah.
Reaching one person. I had a little cousin. He's just became a deacon in the church. But he follows me. I didn't even know. He's like, "Oh, I was listening to your podcast. I was reading your email newsletter, and I was like, what?"
What'd he say?
I was like, "What?" Because I really feel like still because of my embedded embarrassment about I've been able to compartmentalize my family. They know that I do
Mm-hmm.
this, and I think it amuses them.
Mm.
But they still are accepting of me, and that gives me hope for us.
Yeah.
Um, my aunt wasn't feeling well, and I took my tuning fork to her house, and I said, "You can hold your cross and your Bible if you want, but I'm about to put this tuning fork right on you." And she's like, "What you doing, Tyria? What you doing?" I said, "I am healing your energy. That's what we're doing." So the
Yeah.
thing about what you said, I want to make sure we use the word
Mm-hmm.
intentional,
Mm-hmm.
intentional detachment and destruction of our beliefs, because they knew. This is what I want us to stop thinking, that the white supremacists were ignorant. Yes,
Yeah.
in certain aspects, of course. But they were very intentional to separate us from our spiritual traditions. Purposeful to separate us from our spiritual traditions. Purposeful to break up families. Purposeful to do things that will tear us down emotionally, that would destroy and deconstruct our nervous systems. All
Yes.
these things were intentional.
Yes.
So that's why I call myself a spiritual activist, because you guys, there are people who will march on the street with the picket signs, and we need
Mm-hmm.
them. There are people who get into political office. I guess we need them. But there's also people like what you're doing here, and heads of elays, and
Mm-hmm.
people in spiritual communities who are doing the work to make sure we remember who we are. And if I might add, the work that you are doing with women and
Mm-hmm.
femmes is even more important, because we need to tap back into the divine feminine,
Mm-hmm.
the creator, the goddess.
Yes.
That is the root. Who creates humans?
Mm-hmm.
Who creates humans? Us.
Okay. Us. We do. We do.
So tapping into all these things is
Mm.
necessary.
Absolutely.
Every single work you see that we're doing to understand who we are and who we were, is so important, because that is what's being lost, and that is what's trying to be ripped from us again.
Yeah, I was going to say again,
Again.
through the banning of books, through people taking away, creating more laws so people don't have access to health care, access to public records, access to public education, public broadcasting.
The monitoring of menstrual cycles.
Yeah, the monitoring of menstrual cycles through apps, through medical institutions, through our doctors. You know, it's not just. I always tell folks it's never just about abortions.
No.
Like, it's not just about abortions. It is
No.
about control,
Yes.
long term control
Yes.
of everybody.
Of everybody.
But we're still stuck on that, unfortunately.
Right.
So it's super necessary for all of us to tap in with our purpose, which is beautiful that folks can come to you
Yeah.
to have a better understanding and finding their purpose,
Yes.
and really owning it, because I
Yes.
think fear, like how you mentioned fear and all these other things that kind of get in people's way.
Yeah. That part right there, owning
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I was going to say owning it is super important. I want to get into your work. Well, yeah, because what you're doing is so important as well with Middleton-Cooke Farms. And I want to get into how this came to be, because if I'm not mistaken, around the time we met and started hanging out, this was when you were already thinking about it, but this is when you really like tapped into it and started and decided. Yeah, because I think you told me, you're like, no, I'm making it a charity. I'm already in my paperwork. I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, that's super important. Like, this is amazing. So I want to get into that, because I think a lot of folks would benefit by understanding what happens when you do listen, and also what happens when you are not afraid to return to the land. Because I think the South has a bad rep, and I think when people think about land, or that conversation around land, they just go straight into either farming, or they
Yes.
just go straight into just real estate. And they're not necessarily thinking about like that ancestral connection. So I do want you to talk about how that came to be in the work, and also, of course, I want to know how to support you in that, for sure.
Oh, thank you. You have been super supportive just by your presence. And I think what I would advise before I get into the journey, that part of the journey, this chapter, this part of the journey, is that we humans, this is why they say don't think up here, think here and here. We don't know what the real plan is.
That part.
We are guided in a particular direction. That's why when people say, well, what's next? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. People, and people think, when you are a psychic medium, people think your life is all together. Honey, they not telling me nothing that was going to show me the vision. Why? So I can fuck it up? No. You are being led. You're literally being led like this. Where am I
Yeah,
going now?
in real time.
So when I went on this idea of starting a farm was my rudimentary human concept of what they wanted me to do, right? So let's see now. COVID happened. And I'm living in Brooklyn, and I had a child up at school in upstate New York, and had a daughter in Philly. And I was like, what are we going to do? Meet on Highway 95 when it's time for the Armageddon? I was like, hell no. So the youngest was graduating. I said, move to Philly. And then I packed up my stuff, and at the end of 2020, I moved to Philly. And I had a great time in Philly. It was the time of Clubhouse. I don't know if you remember
My
Clubhouse,
goodness,
honey.
yes. Yes. Oh,
We talking about a world, a metaverse within a metaverse, honey. And me and my addictive behavior into learning and new concepts, I just dived into there and I became a personality. I was a personality on IG. I said, bye, IG. I don't know what y'all talking about over here. I'm going over to this new thing where these people are acting crazy. But not on, let me tell you, Clubhouse taught me about plant medicine. Clubhouse
mm-hmm.
taught me about farming. Clubhouse taught me about cryptocurrency.
See, okay.
Clubhouse taught me about human design. It taught me about numerology. I was in all the streets,
Oh,
all the
yes.
streets. I had a following. We started a group called Black Folks and African Spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 30, 40,000 members. We were
Yeah.
talking to people from all over the world.
Yeah.
It was expansion on fleek. And I
Yeah.
wasn't standing up there talking like a talking head. I was in the rooms, honey. I
Yeah.
was in the rooms listening. I was going to the Japanese rooms. I didn't even know what they were saying. They were speaking Japanese. And I was sitting right in them Japanese rooms.
No,
So,
Clubhouse was fun.
Clubhouse was fun. And it was a
Had some great people on Clubhouse.
I met
There's folks that I still talk
still
to
to
this
this
day.
day.
Yeah.
But one thing that came out of that was the plant people, the land people, how do we
Yeah.
get land? And so my human mind is like, I want land. Maybe I should go back to Charleston and try one more time to reconcile my family's land. That's a whole nother story. But also it introduced me to the idea that it was time for me to take a psychedelic journey.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you know that story. That psychedelic journey was the beginning. Really, 2020 and me getting a reading and learning about Chiron and
Yeah.
astrological placement was really the beginning. Next was going on a psychedelic journey after doing all the research and connecting to all the right people. That journey where I asked for one thing, Chelsea. The one thing, my intentionality into that journey was one word, intentionality, and that was the truth. And I didn't know anything about this Gemini in the eighth house, Scorpio, heavy placements in the first house. I didn't know anything about that really. I didn't understand any of it. And you heard me say this before, when you ask for something in a psychedelic journey of those, you talk about ancestors,
Mm-hmm.
psilocybin, mushrooms, they are our ancestors.
Yeah, I agree.
They are the ancestors. And I took a journey in 2020. I took and two journeys in 2021. All that time I was saying to myself, oh, I need to go down south and get a farm together. Because that's all my human mind could gather.
Mm-hmm.
Go
Yeah.
down south and start a farm. So I said Middleton-Cooke Farms. And then when I came here 3 years ago, I did the nonprofit and it's going to help. And I was working on it and building it in Philly, the concept of it. But then when I came here, it was all about, okay, now you got to find the land. But then about 2 years ago, when I started it, I think, I forget if it's 2022, I decided to start this nonprofit, put in the paperwork. I see you had Dr. Ayoka Wiles on here. That is
Mm-hmm.
my god sister. She did everything for me.
Wow.
She
Yeah.
did all the paperwork. That's what she does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because she's amazing. Yeah.
She's amazing. And she would say, no, I didn't do everything. Humble. I was like, girl, you did everything. Okay. I just gave you the information. She filed, everything. Now the paperwork is together. Now what? Well, maybe, oh, when I was in Clubhouse, I heard about this platform called Geneva. I found out about Geneva back in Clubhouse days. We talking
Yeah.
about 2021, 22. And so 2020, 21. And so I went and started a community because again, in Instagram, you're a talking head. Community is this.
Yeah.
Community, it may be a talking head, but community is also the people engaging with one another. And I didn't
Mm-hmm.
see that anywhere. I saw that nowhere. And then we started calling that place our small metaverse of 200 and some odd Black and indigenous women and femmes. We started calling that the farm. Because what were we doing in there, Chelsea? We are growing.
Absolutely.
We are planting seeds. We are, what do you call it, pollinating. We have women in there with children who are learning about the moon signs. They're learning
Mm-hmm.
about their inner child. We did the breaking the cycle readings. We did the grandmother's hands. We do somatic body work in there,
Yeah.
all virtual.
Yeah.
We call ourselves flowers. That's the farm.
My favorite activation of the farm was the conversation between you and Dr. Ayoka Wiles about prayer. I mentioned that to her during my interview with her
Uh-huh.
because I told her that's essentially how I discovered her, or a different way of how I discovered her, because I had her book.
Mm-hmm. I hear a Lofi song.
Mm-hmm. Have her book, and then going back, once y'all did that conversation, I told her it's one of my favorite. It is truly one of my favorite virtual workshops or conversations that during that time, because everybody was virtual.
Yeah.
Everybody had a workshop, a panel, something. But that was one of my favorites. I told her that it was really cool to watch for anyone that may feel like confused or unsure about how they pray, as far as their language, as far as how to set their intention. I was like, that it was such a great blueprint, no matter what your religion is.
No matter.
Yeah, so that's definitely one of my favorite
Can I tell you
conversations from
something
back
about
then.
Ayoka in that book? We
Mm-hmm.
were talking about this. So, part of spiritual development in the Yoruba Lukumi, and I'm being very specific about saying Yoruba Lukumi as opposed to Ifa. People
Mm-hmm.
just normally say Ifa. No, I'm not talking about Ifa. Ifa is a part of our tradition, okay? Orumala is an Orisha and a deity that is part of our tradition. But specifically about this religion and how it came through the transatlantic slave trade through Cuba is very important to understand. There is a practice that is rooted in whiteness
Mm.
called centros, misas,
Mm-hmm.
white tables. Those that practice was part of my spiritual development and many other Yoruba Lukumi practitioners. It's important because this is how we tap in to spiritual development and how we tap into spiritual investigation. Because what do we say about most, if not all, African traditional religions? I would say indigenous
Mm-hmm.
religions. It's the honoring of our ancestors. Nothing can be done before you check in with your ancestors first. Okay? So if you about to tiptoe into a tradition, remember, if they're not honoring ancestors first, no bueno. So, there's a book that is used in a lot of these misas, centros, seances called the Kardec. You heard about him, Kardec?
No. Mm-mm.
Look him up. I don't have
Okay.
the book in front of me, but he was one of these espiritismo,
Okay.
which comes, in my opinion, from Europe. Okay? But that is one of the first practices. Again, this was survival for us.
Yeah.
This what these people want to, they okay with us sitting at these tables and tables shaking, you talking to spirits. They okay with that. When you start talking to Orishas, they got a problem. But because it came through Cuba, they were able, Santeria put the Orishas, what do you call it? Syncretism, you know what I'm talking about. Where you put the Orisha through the saints.
Through the saints, yeah, syncretism.
Right,
Yeah.
syncretism. So now, what I want to talk about with Ayoka is the evolution in some of the practices of sitting. You know, this is the only book we had, the Kardec book, which is a book of prayers. So this is the book we used, the Kardec book. Ayoka's book is now one of the books that is used in place of the Kardec book. This is how we talk about reclamation. And she probably would have never, maybe secret in the back of her mind, she's like, I'm going to put out this book of prayers. And then we were like, oh, Ayoka got a book out. You know what else we use? But it doesn't have prayers. It's Iyanla Van Zant's Acts of Faith.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Now, a lot of people don't know Iyanla Van Zant is a Yoruba priest.
Yes, she is. Yeah.
Her book is used when you want to talk to them. The Kardec book was used to open up the Misa or the Central. But now, I never use the Kardec book. I use Ayoka's book.
And I told her, I was like, I thanked her, and I told her that it's so beautiful because no matter where you are in life, whether it's if someone just passed away, if you are personally feeling unwell, if you just want to connect with your ancestors, if you want to learn, or even just learn a bit more about the Orishas, it's such a great introduction. And she just so humbly was like, oh, thank you.
That's
and
how
it's
we
so
do
beautiful.
It. That's how we do it. That's how we do it. And you know, the Bible is used in these centros, and I use these terms interchangeably, especially the word seance, because people's like, what is that? And all I can do is give them, everybody knows what a seance is. Seance. But the evolution and the reclamation of how we practice. Coming from this young girl from New York City.
Yeah, so amazing.
Isn't she? She's like younger than me, but she's older than me. If that makes sense.
And she grew up in the tradition, which I learned that about her through our interview. And I remember I asked her, like, when was your first, what you can remember, your first experiences with spirit, or when you learned. And she said, I believe I learned spirit and experienced it for the first time when I was a child through dance and through song, because my parents, that's what they did, and that was just normal for them. And my mother sang to me when I was in the womb, and she danced, and it's when I felt my freest. Everything was just so natural, so normal, and that was my first times, and I just thought that was so beautiful. Someone who actually grew up in the tradition, what their experience is like, and how they are now.
Yes. And she has children who grow up in the tradition.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
This is reclamation again. This is how it happens.
Yeah, seriously, yeah, because even for me, it's a lot of, deconstruction going on.
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
and it may take just as long of a time, as it did, but also, I also like to share how I'm aware of my experience as a kid and growing up within my mother's household, my dad's household, and being like both like a blend. Father's side is mainly Muskogee, Creek, indigenous background. Majority of them still Christian Baptist.
Oh, Christian Baptist.
And
White
then,
supremacy.
yeah. But then my mother's side, Hoodoo, Creole, Alabama Creole. Um, and even then, like that on that side, that generation, I did my genealogy. I went all the way back 10 generations past the white folks. So even when you were talking about white ancestors, I have pictures, I have conversations with them all the time because that, I mean, it's still, they're still present. It still makes up, my mother growing up with her grandmother being essentially biracial or white passing. Have you seen the film Sinners?
I did.
Okay. So when I took my mama to go see Sinners
Mm-hmm.
and she saw the character Mary,
Mm-hmm.
who, was didn't really want to have nothing to do with white folks.
Mm-hmm.
It was with us and she was family. My mother was like, that is your great grandmother
Mm-hmm.
because that's what she looked like.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't want to have nothing to do with white people.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, I'm sure it was out of trauma.
Yes.
And and she was like, but she was the hoodoo lady.
Yes.
And I think because of what she looked like,
Yes.
she was able to navigate in certain ways. And I asked my
Absolutely.
mother, like, were there ever people that came by the house or friends? And she was like, I mean, if they came to the house, they was on the porch. They met her outside. Unless they knew
Wait, you
her.
mean white folks?
Anybody that wanted to come like for her services or just needed something because she was more so about like the health like modalities.
Yes.
So yeah, like because my mother said she said they were never sick when she was still alive. When they were kids, they were never sick. And she maybe had one other friend who looked like her, also white passing, that was practicing, and it was just very like very hush hush. And yeah, and she was like, it was just so much within that film that part of it inspired the podcast actually.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. Because so this is your episode would be essentially, maybe I've done a few episodes with just me speaking and talking and just sharing, but you are guest number 2 essentially. Yes. But I have, my goodness, I'm so excited. I have so many people lined up. Even Dr. Sharu, who's the hoodoo consultant for Sinners, she's agreed to come on the podcast too.
Oh
Yeah, I'm
my
going to talk to
God.
her. Yeah. Yeah, because essentially it's because when I took my mother to watch Sinners, that was like the first time for her where she's seen representation of the practice, the tradition that wasn't negative.
Yeah.
And also it wasn't, nothing super spooky about it. It was all,
Yes.
and it was,
Natural. The
yeah,
way
it
the
was just
kids, they had the kids coming to get their what did they
some
come?
high John.
Hi, John, the
Yeah.
Conqueror. Yes, that was so adorable.
Yeah, super super sweet. No, that everybody a part of that film, they did it right. So yeah, and we talked about it, and she just shared a lot of things that just reminded her of her grandmother, my great grandmother, from people not coming over to the house, them not allowing people in the house, them not taking everybody's food.
That's right.
If somebody came and said, "Oh, I made this pie for you" or whatever, she said my grandmother would be like, "Oh, okay, thank you," and then tell her, "Girl, go throw this in the trash."
Right.
Like, no, absolutely not. Not eating no one's food. They didn't go out to eat.
And that's very black.
Yes, yes.
That's even to this day. My Aunt Teresa does not like to go out. She thinks it's a waste of money and
Mm-hmm.
time, and she can make that at home. But that's rooted in something else.
Mm-hmm. I think also like for some people it's protection because there was just no trust in other people preparing a meal for you,
Absolutely.
let alone you not knowing like what is this person spiritually in the
Yes.
kitchen back there, what they got
Yes.
going
Like
on making
water
my
for
food.
chocolate. You ever saw that or
What is
read
it?
that? Like water for chocolate.
Yes, like water for chocolate. Yep.
The emotionalities of the people preparing your food. That's why when angry people are making your food, you feel angry. When sad
Mm-hmm.
people are making your food, you feel sad. When happy people are making your food, you feel happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, really it's interesting because Yeah, one of my aunts who's gifted, she just kind of tapped more into cooking and like homesteading, if you will. And we had a conversation about the house, my grandmother's house, the family house essentially. A lot of people have passed who either they passed in the house or used to come to the house a lot or once lived in the house, passed away. And so when they moved back in the house, and this has been in our family almost four generations now, but when she moved back into the house, it was a few disturbances.
Mm-hmm. I bet.
Yeah. And at first it was just very, like a shock and just like, oh, I don't know. Like, it was just very like negative coming from her, like just
Mm-hmm.
confusion or just, I don't know. I was like, well, maybe they're excited to see.
Is this the aunt who's in a hoodooist?
So we're all, she has the gift of sight.
Uh-huh.
So she's so deeply spiritual, a huge prayer.
Mm.
She is one that you would say she still identifies as a Baptist.
Mm.
I think because of just like upbringing
Yeah.
and just her having that gift, she's never really shared that publicly. So
Yeah.
again, when you were talking about Christianity feeling safe and being
Yeah.
safe,
Yeah.
I think that definitely applies to her.
That was my mom.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So yeah, so for me, I have to really encourage her to tap back into the tradition and the practices, especially because we're in the family home, and and she calls them disturbances, but I'm like, I mean, they might be happy to see you, and and I said, what about just lighting, I told her to light a candle, put some water out near the pictures, and she was like, what pictures? I'm like, get the pictures out the drawer. I know you got the pictures in the drawer. That's probably why they're upset. And she's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, yo, just say a prayer. I was like, the Psalms is fine. Like, I was like, come on, like, we do this. And she was like, yeah, but I'm like, come on, seriously. Nobody needs to come over to the house. And she was like, yeah, because that's what I was thinking of asking. I was like, no, I don't. I was like, it's you. You can do it. We don't really need someone else to come in and pray
Yeah.
for our house when these are
Yeah.
folks that we know.
Yeah.
And
And
she's
do
like,
some
okay.
elevation. I mean, just some prayers. Okay, so why do you do prayers, right? In a home like that? Spirits aren't supposed to be living here on earth permanently. All
Mm-hmm.
right? Spirits need elevation. And who elevates the spirits? Us.
Yeah.
It's our job to elevate the spirits. And then they can come down for visitations through your
Mm-hmm.
dreams, through your prayer practices, through whatever. When we do altars like the one you see behind me, called the Agun Shrine, we have the line on the ground and we put the lines like this as a gate.
Mm.
That's where y'all live, and this is where I live.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And so part of the shaking on the da 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 is what I heard when you told me that was tell your aunt to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Tell your aunt to wake up. They want her to
Yeah.
wake up.
Yeah.
This is not foreign to the church. This is not the podcast for that. Is it the underground podcast? Because you know where I go, Chelsea Vonchez.
Well,
So
that's
we
why I
go
have you here because, yeah.
Chelsea Montez. This is another tool of white supremacy. I will just say very covertly that everybody is doing something.
Yes.
And they got us thinking that we not supposed to be doing nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
They are whole ass organizations that start with the word M, as in the man that I said earlier. If you could
Yeah.
put two and two, that they got whole things they doing.
Mm-hmm.
And sinners, the Irish guy. Remember the
Yeah.
kid started saying, Our Father who art in heaven. He's like, I know that shit. He said they came and brought that shit to my people. He
Okay.
was like, this is the tool. This is the tool. we could get all into the Irish and the African and the transatlantic slave trade and the levels on the ship. They were colonized too. You see them over there fighting still.
Yeah. Still.
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 Then they're going to use them. Well, okay, well, they're black and you're white. So since you're white, even though they were thought to be beneath,
Mm-hmm.
but because you're white, we're going to have you rule over these Africans. Little girl, we're not going there. But anyway, this goes back, honey. This goes back. It goes back to what Dr. Joy DeGruy is talking about in regards to they got to find somebody to put their foot on the neck, right? And so when they see these people and they're like, okay, I'm going to teach them the Lord's Prayer too.
Yeah.
And they were doing their Irish stuff, honey.
Period.
So are there still Irish people around? Are these said Irish people in government? Are the... See, that movie has so many levels.
So many. So many.
So you mean to tell me the oil order, the something order of the police?
Yeah.
Who's running that? And they just dropped all their indigenous practice. No, they leave that over there in Ireland. We don't know.
Yeah.
So when we think about this, the Catholic Church, they didn't got... Child, we see all these movies where they doing stuff in basements and but no, that's not real. How come their stuff is not real and ours is? And beware of the blacks, beware of the Africans. I mean, movies indoctrinating us. You got a movie like Live and Let Die, which was one of my favorite James Bond films. I wonder why. Where James Bond went to Harlem. And James Bond went to New Orleans. It was, that whole movie was about magic.
Yeah.
And indigenous and black people doing beware of the blacks.
Yeah.
And when did that movie come out? In the 60s and 70s? And
I was about to say, the 70s.
What was going on in Harlem? Girl, the movement. Every time they feel us doing something, this is still within the realms of this topic.
Yeah.
Every time they see us about to do something movement-wise, you will see them put a movie out, a TV show out, something out to try to make us afraid of ourselves again.
Yeah. Yeah, and even the conversation around sinners, because it triggered a lot of Black Christians. And I'll be more specific, Black Christian nationalists, because I think just like how we have white Christian nationalists, we got some Black Christian nationalists, and well, too many.
The ones that went to Target so they could buy Tabitha's product.
You know, we going there, but yes,
we going there. Voice, throat chakra, fully activated.
Full activated. Yeah, because they, it was just, a lot of folks was just triggered, and there were so many conversations online happening, but even then it was like trying to change it where it was like, this is anti-Christian, this is anti-Jesus, this is anti-God. I'm like,
and
your point? What's your point? Yeah, but it's just, I think for me, it's interesting too to see, because I just have always been unapologetic about it as far as my tradition, and also never shying away from the truth. Like, I was raised Baptist. I knew this side of the family, practiced this, honoring what my mother wanted, my grandmothers wanted. Like, it's just has brought us peace to not share that we have gifts. So just keep it moving. But it's just really interesting now where I have these conversations within certain family members and friends. And it's like, well, what is your reason to hide now?
Right.
What's
we know.
Yeah. And I just want them to kind of think about it, because they're still hiding even in private, even Even in the house, just
Yes.
being afraid, like, hey, just put the
Yes.
pictures out,
Just put the pictures out.
dust them off,
That's right.
sit down and say a prayer,
That's right.
put
And
some
wake
water.
up. And wake
Yeah,
up.
and just,
Wake up.
yeah,
That
take a
term from
moment.
do the right thing at the end where they said wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Wake up. That's
Yeah.
why we're here. That's
Yeah.
why your aunt has you. That's why the new crop of children being born, new crop of children being born to these mothers who are waking up.
Yeah.
Because, I talk about in the book I wrote, Dear Chiron and Aries,
Mm-hmm.
I have a Scorpio moon, right? And so that is centered around secrecy. So what did I need from my mother? I needed to know who she was. And I already told you, I think I explained there was no way for me to know who she was because she was hiding her whole spiritual foundation because of trauma, because of the escape from
Mm.
Charleston, because of the fact that she lost two children tragically.
Mm.
Um, so I never got to know her. I'm working with women specifically, mainly, and this is maybe coincidental, mainly with women who have young children.
Mm.
And so what happens is that's an influence that my mother, this is how you elevate them. Because of what I'm going through to heal myself, the healing journey of discovering that I've been living in a shell and
Yeah.
not speaking is detrimental to the future generations. So imagine all the mothers of these women who aren't speaking, who aren't living in their truth. So when I'm being told you are a mother, you are a godmother, you are a leader, you talking about listening to spirit and how I didn't want to listen. You are this, you are that, you are this, and not understanding because my human mind is thinking, oh, they mean within the construct of initiating people, and no, they mean that my voice in talking to young black women and
Mm.
femmes who have children. Why do I say black women and femmes? Because the divine feminine flows through all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to tap into that ear. And if you have an impact on future humans, that is important that you get yourself, gather yourself, learn yourself, be your true, authentic self for your children. That is spiritual activism.
Mm. How can we, for folks out there listening and beyond, how can we support you between the Hungry Medium and Middleton-Cooke Farms?
That's a great question. And I'm just going to be very blunt. I need a book agent.
Okay.
My human mind,
Yeah.
because it's the human mind, but it's based on being guided. Just a few days ago, it was my daughter. Like, mommy, how's anyone going to help you if you don't ask for help?
Mm-hmm.
My thing, and here's, I want to tell the people that are listening, whoever's listening, and you know how I am, Chelsea. I just need one person to hear me. I don't care. One person. If I could
Yeah.
use one person. If we, what we do as a defense mechanism not to be judged and not to be rejected and not to be abandoned is we will whittle down a dream.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so, Spirit led me to write this book, Dear Chiron and Aries, which is just letters, love letters that I wrote to women with this placement. And then people contributed to it. It's so powerful because Aries is the first house in the zodiac. And Chiron is where the wound is in our chart and in our bodies and in our consciousness. and my mother and father were Chiron and Aries. I'm a degree away from being a Chiron and Aries. I'm a Chiron and Pisces. It is almost impossible to have a parent and a child with the same Chiron. I'm only a degree away. The children being born Chiron and Pisces and Chiron and Aries right now are the children I'm impacting. All of this is not lost. This is not a book just for people who have the placements, the people who have the impact on the children with this placement, had mothers with this placement. And so I wrote the book, and then I was like, I didn't ask anybody for help. So I'm just going to print out 100 copies and pass them out on the street. That's the whittling down of a dream. And I said to my daughter, I said, yeah, I'm just going to print out like 100 copies and just hand them out for free to people on the street, like the pamphlet, like the Watchtower. Like the Daily Word. What was the one the Muslims had? The Muslims used to pass out something. I can't remember. The black Muslims.
Yeah. No, they in LA they still pass it out. I forgot what it's called.
Bean pies and everything.
Yeah, with the suits on.
Was it called Final Call?
I think it's called honey. Final Call. Yeah.
Final Call, honey. I was gonna do some Final Call shit and hand the book out, and my daughter's like, "What?" So when you ask that question, I know what I need. I need a book agent.
Yeah.
She was like, just go on YouTube. It actually was my youngest daughter, not my oldest. It was both of them, separate times. The Cancer, who was my mother, and the Aquarian, who was just like me, living up in the air. It's really important to tell people what your dream is, and it's really important to articulate what you want done. So the Human, when you ask what I need a book agent. And then what happens from there? Of course, I need a publisher, but something's telling me I need a book agent.
Yeah, first.
And then, do I need donations to the farm? Let me tell you something. We are in an economy right now and in a political climate where nonprofits are falling off the face of the earth, especially nonprofits like Middleton-Cooke Farms. We have a self-sustaining organization that lives in the metaverse, and we are continuing to do the work. Do we need money to do that? We need money to meet in person. But really, it would take millions to do the vision. You were talking about Black burial grounds. It hit me in my shondo because we had applied for a grant that was going to help Black burial grounds all throughout Charleston. So now when you say, what do I need? I need a book agent, because the work that I do is always tied to helping to heal Black women and femmes well, why you just focus on Black women? Because I am a Black woman. I have raised 2 Black women. I was born from a Black woman. We are the originators of this whole world. That's why. So who's going to have the most impact? Us is. We have to find ourselves again. And if I can start with Chiron and Aries, Dear Chiron and Aries, then I could go to Dear Chiron in Taurus, and then I could go to Dear Chiron in Gemini, and then I could go on and on and on. But you got to start somewhere.
Yeah, I agree. And you're not lying about Black-led organizations, because we're not talking about the white-led organizations that are allegedly serving Black communities. We're not talking about them. We're talking about Black-led organizations, Black-founded organizations that are serving Black communities, Black Indigenous communities. We're all in a very tight situation right now, from budgets being cut.
Yes.
And not only that, the focus, all these distractions, it's terrible when all we trying to do is save ourselves.
Save ourselves.
So it's real tight.
When I think of Middleton-Cooke Farms, I think of me. If there's something I'm doing, it's going to help everyone else. I'm not trying to get a home in Hollywood Hills or wherever. I'm trying to be happy. I'm trying to continue to make my inner child feel safe. And if safety for her is the ability to creatively express herself, I already have the placement saying I'm going to help others through the work I do for myself. And writing is creative expression. And if I could live as an example, a reflector, a human design reflector, and mirror and reflect back to everyone else what it looks like to heal oneself, no matter how hard it is, and no matter what your wounds are, and going through the fire of understanding that you may do something and it may make people not like you anymore, but you get to say, I don't give a shit, because I'm doing how I'm being led. My body is leading me to paint. My body is leading me to write. My body is leading me to create and live fully and freely so that my inner child is happy. Our inner child is a spirit guide. I don't know if y'all know that. So I'm listening to the spirit guide of my inner child, who wants to do all these things. She wants to have joy. She wants to be playful. She wants to have pleasure. She wants to travel. She wants to do fun things now. And I have a community of Black and Indigenous women and femmes like yourself, who I call my guardians. Because y'all be you remember how you were my guardian at the art event?
Yeah, needed it that day. But it was a fun day.
That was a beautiful day. I felt so super special. Being able to honor my goddaughter while she was going through her initiation process, and having you there meant the world to me, because the healers also need support. And we were supporting one another that day, you and me.
Yeah.
Because that world, you ever saw something Buzzsaw? I can't remember the name of that movie. Child, the art world. I needed you.
Yeah, I'm glad to have been there with you, because it was beautiful. We had a great time. And it's always a good time. It's always a good time with you.
You too, Chelsea Von
Yeah.
Chaz.
Thank you so much
Your hat.
for.
I love you with your hat, honey, with that hat.
Oh, yes, I'm going to keep a hat on.
That cowboy hat.
Protecting my head.
That's right.
Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you for having me on here. I'm excited for your podcast.
Thank you. Me too, because these are conversations that I want to hear, and I didn't really see nothing like this online coming from someone who is who grew up in this space and that's now feeling called to build communities with other folks, because I'm sure there are other people out there who feel the same, who want to learn, who want to understand. Thank you.
You're very brave.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
I thank you for listening to your spirit guides, because you have a lot of clout, meaning that people want to hear what you have to say. And again, you can go through your bouts of not believing that. That's not true, first of all. Someone else could go through the bouts of not believing that and do nothing. And you are listening, and you're doing it in the way you're being led to do it. Not out of ego, but out of intuition and listening to your body. And listening to your body is listening to spirit as the divine feminine.
Ashe. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. Y'all, to get in touch with Miss Kat Niambi, make sure you go to middleton-cookefarms.org. And if you are a book agent out there, I need you to holler at her. Stop playing.
It's good. I'll send you the preface.
See? Prepared. Stayed ready so she don't have to get ready. She is prepared. Thank you again. Thank you so much for listening. You have been listening to the practice of a Hoodoo Baptist, covered by spirit, guided by blood. Until next time, peace.